All right. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. My name is Laura with EPSI. We'll get this webinar with Bismarck State College started shortly. I'm sure several of you are joining us either from a conference room, from a car, getting logged in. But before we get started, feel free to drop into the chat of what you're hoping to gain from this conversation, perhaps some questions you have for Bismarck, or even how you heard about this webinar, who you work with. I know we have some wonderful EPSI members and employers. Eversource, maybe Monica tapped you on the shoulder to join. Our rural contractor cooperatives, I'm sure you maybe got a message. Let us know where you are joining us from. People on the call we have from Bismarck, North Dakota. I'm based out of Wisconsin. I know I'm joined by some members in Denver and Illinois. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Just want to make sure we get everyone able to join. All right. Get going. Just a minute. I'll give it one more minute. All right. Everyone's got their coffee, their water as we set in. All right, I will kick us off. And so thank you for joining us today for EPSI's webinar with our education partner, Bismarck State College. Very excited to have you all here. This is very much a conversational webinar. We are here for you, so feel free to drop into the chat any questions you have as they're coming up, or introduce yourself, where you're joining us in the country or who referred you. Today, we'll be going through what is EPSI, an overview of that program, and then I'll pass it to our partners here, Greg and Ashley from Bismarck State College, to go over specifically the programs that they offer. Make sure that you're asking the questions, getting that information, and we'll follow up in next steps. Our goal is we're here for about 45 minutes. We want to make sure it's very conversational, that you're getting the information that you need. So again, thank you for joining us today. Again, you guys know me, Laura. I'll be your host today. Our agenda, I will go over a few minutes of what is EPSI, what's this acronym you're telling me about, what those programs are, tips for learners as you're thinking about returning to school, what that commitment looks like, and then of course pass it to Bismarck, and we'll wrap up with Q&A. Just a reminder for Q&A, that'll be in the chat, so make sure you're finding the chat function if you're joining by computer or phone, what that's going to look like. We're ready to help answer your questions. So what is EPSI? What is this new acronym that I'm learning about today? Energy Provider Coalition for Education. EPSI started in 2000, so 26 years ago, of really needing to get online energy education into the hands of workforce that needed to help fill these needs. Bismarck State College was one of our first partners to do that, so we're so happy to have them here today and continue this partnership. Bismarck's considered, a standard leader in the energy industry across the United States. We're very excited to have this partnership. As you see these logos below, EPSI is an association of many different members, utility company associations, unions, several of them. So as you'll see, there's Eversource on here, there's National Rural Electrical Co-op Association, Dominion Energy. I'm sure a couple of you might recognize your logos, but we have thousands of members. Always feel free to reach out to me if you have questions of, is my employer a member? What does that look like? Because that's going to help feed into the access for these programs and tuition discounts. But yeah, this is EPSI, started 26 years ago. It is in time, real training developed by the industry for what you all are needing in the energy sector. Now, this goes over a bit. There's 29 programs under the EPSI umbrella that are available to you. Those logos that I showed, just a sample of that, of those employers saying like, yes, we want people to get these trainings. We agree that these are industry led. These are developed by industry. We find value in these. Our employees should be taking these trainings. So we'll make sure, I know Ashley will drop in the EPSI website for what that is, so you can peruse what those programs are. But we have several education partners. Bismarck State College is our longest partner right now, so we're very excited to have them. And again, they have that reputation across the United States for having the best in class energy training and curriculum. So why does EPSI matter to you? As you are an employee of one of the employers that is an EPSI member, you can get a discounted tuition rate. And also, again, these programs that are available through EPSI, they're built by utility professionals, built by the industry, and then co-developed with our training partners here, accredited training partners. So you really have that stamp of gold standard approval. The training you're getting is relevant, important, and can be recognized. So it's not random education, it's very, very relevant of what this is going through. So I'm very excited to hand it over to Bismarck shortly to what that looks like. All this training, because you are all busy. A lot of you are working. Like I said, some of you are probably joining from your car or conference room, where you are in the United States of looking through that. These trainings 100% online, asynchronous for you because yeah, you're busy working. Maybe your schedule shape changing between third and second shift, but it's really, really to meet you where you are and what that's going to look like and transferable credit. You know, a lot of like all learning should be recognized. What does that look like? Maybe you previously worked in military experience or you owned a business for 10 years. What does that look like? And that should count for something to look through that. And Bismarck does very good credit for prior learning and depending on what that looks like for you. Again, just to say this, your company, maybe in your HR trainings or information, you have tuition reimbursement or tuition discounts. But nationally, fewer than 5% of employees access those. You know, some companies will reserve, say it's $50,000 for their employees or $500,000 and say this is set aside for people to have professional development to grow their learning of thinking that they can do that. Most employees don't unlock that. So this is a vehicle for you with the information of what you can do to develop into your training. I know it's April of this year. Some of you might be planning summer vacations. We encourage you take some time to plan your future goals as you're thinking about continuing your education. What do you want 2 years from now to look like, 3 years from now of what that's going to look like so that you can develop your education, build your pathway, and continue on in the energy sector with your employer. Again, we'll make sure to send these out after, but this is a little more a visual of what credit for prior learning or prior learning assessment looks like at an institution for this. But it's recognizing military training, job training and certifications, previous college courses, what that looks like, assessing that, and then seeing where you could get some credit or expedite to a degree. You might be closer than you think, depending on your experience. I know Bismarck will walk us through that shortly. And again, as we're thinking about this, a lot of words on this, we will send this out. But as you are thinking about re-enrolling or enrolling for the first time into continuing education, here's just some tips and tricks around it. It does take a lot of commitment from the people that are closest to you to help support that. We recommend scheduling time, like, okay, Tuesdays and Thursday nights, I spend 2 hours on this, or on these weekends, I do this to help with that commitment. The law of averages, you are most like the 5 people you spend the most time with. So think about that. If the 5 people you spend the most time with are not currently enrolled at a college taking courses, that's just a little bit of change management you're exercising, but we'll make sure to send out a learner toolkit to help you think of those things, build that awareness. So as you're getting back into it, you're aware like, okay, this is what it is. I need to advocate on a discussion board. I need to advocate for myself. I need to schedule time. This is temporary. It's an investment in myself. 2 years from now, I'm going to have a certificate. It's not always like this. This is the support I need to be successful in continuing my education. And then in real time, so before I hand it over to Greg and Ashley, there are success stories. There are employees that either joined a webinar like you are sitting in the seat today, or one of our members had reached out and said you should do this, or you found Bismarck on your own and joined with them. Rachel from Excel, so she went through the nuclear power program, and then we have Philip over here as well. It's really about the knowledge was relevant, helped them in their career, in their job of what that looked like. So these are real people that started their journey, much like you in the audience today, of what this looks like. So this is our nuclear program. And then with Bismarck, with the electric power program as well, we have Brian and Chelsea. So these are real stories, real quotes from people, again, sitting where you were today, that invested in their education, took the step, moved through, completed the programs through Bismarck, and continued on in their career in the energy sector. So it's real time. It's proof to you that this does work, that it is relevant industry training. All right, before I hand it over to Bismarck, and I'll stop my share, we just wanted to stop and say, if there are any questions, drop them in the chat on what EPSI is that we can help answer before we hand it over to Bismarck State College to talk about their amazing programs that they offer. Going once, twice. All right, no worries. I'm going to stop my share. Again, feel free to drop anything in the chat. We are here for you to talk through that. We will have Q&A at the end too as you're thinking about all of this. And I will pass it over to my partners in crime at Bismarck State College, Greg and Ashley. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to your presentation on the programs.
Thank you. So, hi, my name is Greg Lugar. I'm a faculty member in the Nuclear Power Technology program here at BSC. I'm joined today by Ashley Plastick Olson, who is an assistant dean that oversees the electric power technology program, amongst others. Give me one second, get
Yeah,
our presentation sharing here.
absolutely.
There we go. All right. So, again, we're from Bismarck State College. We specifically are a part of the Automation, Energy, and Advanced Technologies division. We work a lot with different trades going into the energy industry or manufacturing or things like that. Won't dwell too much on that slide. So, uh, we are considered a polytechnic institution. That's kind of a recent mission change for us. Historically, we've been a two-year school. Naturally, over the years, we've gravitated more towards the trades, particularly, again, in energy manufacturing type areas. The polytechnic mission change basically just allows us to continue in that trajectory while expanding into more four-year program options. And we'll talk a little bit about those as we step through. But basically, our whole mission, as it were, is to give students the training they need to move into careers in industry. So that could be nuclear power, that can be electric power, that can be any number of other programs that we'll allude to as we go along. So, just some statistics about North Dakota on the screen there. We're one of the larger institutions here in North Dakota, which I realize might not be saying much compared to some of you more densely populated areas. But we do have a rather large footprint across the nation. A lot of people take our energy programs online, uh, in addition to a reasonably sized residency program here at BSC. Well, I realize that most of you are more interested on the online side of things. If you find yourself in North Dakota, I would encourage you to pop on by. We have a pretty cool campus, I think, with some pretty good labs and stuff, and I'd be happy to show you around sometime. That being said, again, our origin is as a community college, and we've tried to keep the prices commensurate with that. So we have reasonably low tuition compared to a lot of our competitors out there, particularly, we're still a state school. So if you're in one of a number of states that with whom we have reciprocity, then you get the in-state tuition rates, which are pretty good. And then even our out-of-state tuition rates are, I think, reasonably affordable by most standards. We have one thing I will encourage you on, whether you end up going to school with us or anywhere else, is to take a look at scholarships. We have a difficult time sometimes giving away all the scholarships we have on hand. Even if you don't consider yourself a scholar, even if you don't think that you have a strong academic background, there's scholarships and waivers, which is basically school instituted scholarships for all sorts of things. Sometimes it's just, do you work in this industry? Do you come from this background, et cetera, et cetera. If you apply, there's a pretty good chance you'll get something. So I would always encourage you to apply for scholarships wherever you end up going. FAFSA, financial aid, is another option if you aren't getting tuition assistance through your employer. Federal financial aid is what that stands for. You can see the acronym up there. But even if you don't think you'll be using FAFSA, it's not a bad idea to put in an application for it during the admissions process, again, here or somewhere else, just because a lot of scholarships have it as a prerequisite. So again, makes more money available to you. We have a number of degree programs that we offer. What you see on the screen here is actually just what we have available online. We have a number of other programs that we offer exclusively on campus, like electrician and industrial automation and so forth. Most of these do have a on-campus equivalent as well. Today we'll be highlighting the electric power technology and the nuclear power technology programs. That being said, any of the other programs you see on screen, again, are available online. I will say for the two Bachelor of Applied Science courses you see in the right on the slide there, both of those are designed to continue off of the associate's degree programs you see on the left. So if, for example, you decide to go through the nuclear power technology program, you complete a two-year degree, get your associate's degree. You can then continue on into, say, the energy management degree, do 2 additional years of schooling, and then get your bachelor's. So 100% of that associate's degree you earn, minus maybe some gen eds, will apply to the bachelor's degree. So you can kind of continue your education along that trajectory. Both the management degrees are basically designed for people who've gone out to work, started working in industry as a technician or operator, reached a point in their career where they're looking at moving into a supervisory role and need some additional training or credentials to do so. Energy management, unsurprisingly, focuses on energy, while operations management is more of a catch-all that focuses on other industries like manufacturing, for example. So for the electric power technology program, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over briefly to Ashley, who again oversees that program.
Thanks, Greg. So as you can see here with our electric power technology pathway here, it's a program that focuses on the transmission and distribution of electricity. It's an industry-driven online program, and it's designed for current and future electric utility workers. And our ELPW program provides students with a core set of skills and competencies and a broad knowledge of the industry. So as you can see here, students can choose specialization area tracks or a select combination of courses that best fit their interests and goals. So if you have a few courses from line construction, but you're also interested in some system design, you can kind of pick and choose whatever works for you within those specialization areas.
All right, so back to the nuclear power technology program, which again is for which I am a faculty member. For those of you who have any experience with, if you know anyone who's gone through the program in the past, you might notice that it looks a little bit different than it used to. You'll see more ENRT prefixes than it used to be entirely NUPT. Basically, we rearranged the program a little bit to overlap more with our other operations programs like power process. So you'll be taking classes with the coal operators and the hydroelectric folks and basically any other area in the energy industry or even some manufacturing folks. The idea there is just there's a lot of overlap in those areas between those different disciplines, and it made sense to allocate resources accordingly to make the courses as good as possible and as few as shells as possible. So it's set up to be a 2-year program. You would be taking your gen eds alongside your technical courses. And in a little bit here, we'll show you what those technical courses look like.
Awesome. So Bismarck State College makes online learning flexible and achievable no matter your schedule. So our accredited programs let you move faster with credit for what you already know, but we also keep things practical and relevant by working directly with our industry partners. And our online learning isn't passive, it's interactive and hands-on. Students engage in meaningful discussions, dive into simulations and animations, and apply what they're learning through remote labs. Our curriculum is designed to be applicable, not just theoretical, so learners can see real-world relevance right away. It's all about keeping our students connected, curious, and career-focused.
All right, and that'll segue to the next part where I show you a little bit about what those different things look like. So here is an example of one of the courses in our programs. So when you log into Blackboard, which is our learning management system through which all of our online courses are hosted, you'll see something that looks like this. For the most part, we try to format all of our courses on the campus, but it's particularly in our division to look similar. So you shouldn't get lost if you jump between different courses and different programs. We generally have the courses broken up into units, which will then within the units contain, a basic list of objectives, reading assignments, lectures, etc. So for the reading assignment, you'll generally have your PDFs. In a lot of the nuclear specific courses, we have the PDFs for your readings built directly into the courses, so there's no additional textbook to purchase. That will not be the case with all courses. Some of them you will have to purchase a textbook through the bookstore or the vendor of your choice. We'll let you know what course you require the books as you sign up for them. Other than that, fairly standard text. For lectures, we generally try to simulate the in-class experience as much as possible. So we generally have PowerPoint set up with audio recording overlay. So I'll just click this and you'll hear my voice starting to talk there. But as you can see, you just click through, you'll get narrated slides as you progress through the program. If you prefer not to have to listen to audio, we do also have a written transcript version in many of the classes, particularly the nuclear ones. There are discussion boards to try and make it a more interactive experience. There's not going to be much in there right now because this isn't a live show because Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act doesn't let me show you other student stuff. So we'll skip that for the moment, but there are discussion boards where you'll be able to talk with your fellow students as well as your instructor. We do have assignments based on, you know, cooked into the program. Those will oftentimes be, simple written. Sometimes there'll be paper. Sometimes there'll be PDFs that you have to, fill out answers for. Sometimes there'll be simulations and the likes, which I'll show you here shortly. And of course, there are quizzes, which again, I won't be showing you right now because exam security. But basically, there'll be a combination of multiple choice, fill in the blank, short answer, all the normal sorts of questions you would expect in a program. The nuclear program generally utilizes a weighted grading scale where a percentage, it's broken up by percentages. So, 20% of your grade is your quizzes, or 15% is your assignments, or whatever else. Many other programs will utilize just a straight point system. All that being said, you've seen a lot of text and some narration, which is all well and good, but we realize it doesn't necessarily make for the most enthralling educational experience. So we do try to insert animations and simulations throughout the program. I have a few examples on standby here. So here's a simple animation. My screen, see if I can move my screen sharing thing so I can actually click the buttons. There we go. So you can see the different animation here, just walking through what an atom is. This is a fairly simple example. For those of you more on the INC side, we have got a RTD bridge set up here, so you can adjust the temperature and see how it affects the different parameters going into it. Here's a animation showing just how a centrifugal compressor works. We also do have some more, aside from animations, we also have activities. So this would be an example of what we call a mini sim, which is basically a small scale simulation. This one walks you through the lockout tagout process, which for any of you working in industry are almost certainly familiar with. So there's a little bit of text explanation here, talking through PPE and the likes, and then it'll actually have you start doing things. So you can see here, click the disconnect off button to close the disconnect. Now drag the hasp and lock and tag over to attach them. More explanation going through the PPE you'll be wearing during that. Then it has you do a hot, cold, hot check. So you start connecting your multimeter to the power outlet, which is still being blocked by my share screen there. But as you can see, I can put the cords anywhere, so it'll let you mess things up. And you just basically keep continuing through there until you get through the whole process. Check the meter's working, check that the thing's dead, check that the meter's working again, that whole process. We also do have full fidelity simulators that are basically the entire plant up and running. I did intend to show today, but apparently the company we host them through, WSC, Western Services Corporation, has their servers down at the moment. So I was not able to get the nuclear simulator up and running prior to this. But we do normally have full fidelity simulators up and running that'll basically simulate the entire plant. So for the nuclear program, that's a pressurized water reactor simulator. So you can start the plant up, shut it down. It's basically like working in the control room at the facility. We do have simulators for other non-nuclear facilities too, like hydroelectric, coal fire, etc. So those are all things you will get an opportunity to utilize at some points in the program. Heading back to the slideshow. So again, we have a long experience working with online coursework. All of our online courses are set up to be totally asynchronous, meaning that there's no particular time during the week where you have to log in. You have 24/7 access to the courses. They are all built by and maintained by folks that have industry experience. So again, I built a lot of the nuclear classes. My background is the nuclear Navy, which you'll realize is probably pretty familiar for a lot of people who came into the nuclear industry. But we have folks from, refineries, from power plants, from transmission side of things, basically the whole gamut of the energy industry. Other than that, all of our courses have an instructor who will be in there answering your email questions, grading your assignments, participating in discussions, all that stuff. We are a regionally accredited college, meaning that we're, a real school. Well, it's basically what that amounts to. So our curriculum is, recognized by all the major accrediting agencies, higher learning commission specifically for our region of the country. Uh, Generally speaking, we have our courses set up in both these programs as 3 to 5 week blocks. So you'll be taking one technical course at a time as you progress through the programs. Usually that'll amount to about 4 classes a semester, again, taking one right after the other. You'll spend, roughly 15 to 20 hours a week on a course. There's no accounting for disparities between individual folks. If you're taking an intro class in an industry you've been working in for 20 years, you'll probably breeze through it a little quicker than someone completely new. Meanwhile, if you're terrible at math, taking a math course, it might take you more than that 20 hours. That being said, if you do find yourself having issues along the way, we do have your instructor in the course as well as other resources you can reach out to through tutoring services and the likes. Back to Ashley.
Yes, and so at BSC, students are paired with a dedicated academic advisor, so they can help with everything from course planning to graduation. Whether you're registering for classes or trying to figure out your next steps, your advisor is there to support you. As Greg alluded to earlier, we have a wide range of scholarship opportunities and various amounts of special opportunities for those students that are seeking the career path within the energy program. So as always, to reiterate that, it's definitely not a bad idea to check out what waivers and scholarship opportunities are available for you, whether it's through your work or through us here at BSC.
All right. So obviously, if you are trying to use tuition assistance or something through your employer, your first step in signing up will probably be to talk to your HR or whoever your supervisor about what that process looks like. That being said, once you're actually ready to enroll at BSC, you would simply go to our website. There's a big old link at the top for admissions, apply here, that sort of thing. I will not say that the whole process of getting started at college is always the simplest in the world. The nice thing is a lot of you, if you're over like 25, some of the high school transcript requirements and so forth go out the window. But that being said, you'll need to try to get whatever transcripts you are required to have, any previous college, high schools if you're under that 25 years of age, etc. And there'll be a whole checklist in the admissions website that'll walk you through each step. It'll show you what you have completed, what you still have outstanding, etc. So, again, it's not necessarily always the simplest process in the world, but it's one that we try to walk you through as best as possible. And we certainly have, contacts here on campus who you can work with to step through that if you find yourself stuck. Uh, you know, the financial aid application also can be a bit of a pain. You'll see that up in the corner there. Again, though, even if you do have the tuition assistance, I would still encourage you to fill it out just because it can oftentimes open the door to other scholarships, and more money is always a good thing. And that gets us to the end of the presentation. So at this stage, I'll open it up to questions and also turn it back to Epsi.
Thank you, Bismarck. That's great. Yeah, feel free to, as you're thinking about your questions in the audience, put that in the chat, but I'll kick us off with questions right now. All right, so I'm in the audience. I want to apply. What's a timeline that you would recommend that I have in my head that I need to submit maybe previous transcripts or credits? What would that look like? Would you say like 6 weeks before, a course starts? What would you recommend?
I mean, what I would recommend and what you have to do is going to vary a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
if you're thinking you want to start in the fall, I would just go ahead and get started now to give yourself
yeah,
as much time as possible.
yeah.
That being said, we've rushed through the process in as little as a week, but
Okay.
I would, encourage you to take more time as possible. The long pole in the tent, usually, if you have prior college, is going to be past transcripts. And frankly, how long those takes will depend on the college you went to. So some of them have electronic systems where you can get them nigh instantaneously, and some of them will have paper systems where you have to like send, request phone call them and they'll snail mail it, and it can take who knows how
Yeah.
long. So
No, that's great. And yeah, great. Another question of typical time frame for working adult who we have. You guys are currently working, taking on learning is an extra thing, but how long do you typically see completing a 2-year program?
we will generally not recommend you go full time initially, particularly if
Okay.
you don't have any experience with online education. So
Yeah.
if you take, let's say half time's probably a reasonable starting point. A 2-year degree would take, unsurprisingly, 4 years. It can go quicker though. That's assuming that you're going half time just during the fall and spring semester. So we also have summer courses you could be taking along the way, which will probably knock you down to about 3 years.
Yep.
Some people do go full time and power their way through it. Again, not a recommendation if you've never taken an online course before, but if you're going
Right.
in, but let's say, you have some experience taking online courses, you have a lot of experience in the industry you're taking an intro course and you can probably breeze through it, then maybe you can tackle more. But again, if you don't have any experience, I would recommend going for more like the 4-year plan than the 2-year.
That's a good plan. Even like think what you hear is like you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. Maybe
Right.
just start with one course and what that looks like, get a feel for it, and then you can build up.
Yep. And you can up in the second semester and take some summer
Yeah.
classes to make up for lost ground and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great recommendation. If you guys are thinking about this, just start with a course, get used to it, and then learn how you can weave this into your life to sustain that and get to the full degree. That's great.
Yeah, and even with that, you can connect with the academic advisor, ask them their questions and their thoughts and just see what their recommendation is, given the background information that you give them, and then they can always reach out to us if there's additional questions. But the wonderful thing about the programs is that you can essentially join at any point in time. There's a point that you can take some of the courses depending on your background level, whether it's fall, spring, or summer.
Okay. That's great. Great to think of. Those questions I have in our audience. Any questions you guys would like to type into the chat that we have for Bismarck State College or EPSI right now? So you're all thinking about it. I'll give it a couple minutes there, but we will for sure after this. Give us a couple of days, but we'll make sure that you have this recording. You'll have the slide deck and contact information. We'll put it up on the EPSI website as well. And then also, as a thank you for you guys joining, we'll make sure you get a learner toolkit. Again, as starting with it, I appreciate that, Greg and Ashley. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew. Think of starting it with one course, committing time that you're going to study to it, what that's going to look like, and then also time to get enrolled. So thinking about you said if you're going to do fall, start right now with that process. But you've rushed it as soon as a week. We don't want anyone rushing in a week to start that, but we really want you to start thinking about what that is, start the application process, get your questions. I know, I don't know if you guys have any you can share with enrollment. I know a question we get quite a bit in these webinars is, I took a training 10 years ago. What does that mean now? Do you guys evaluate that like case by case basis or?
Yeah, so obviously, without more details, we can't say
Yeah,
anything specific about what that training
right.
would do. But generally speaking, we do have a process to evaluate past trainings. Basically, what we would need for you to do in that situation is provide evidence of like what objectives were covered and how long the training was. And then we would map that with our own courses objectives and try and figure out like, okay, you've got the threshold you have to meet 70% of the objectives in a course to get credit for that course. So if you have some combination of training modules where you've met that 70%, we can give you credit for the class. If you don't, then we can't.
Okay, that's great.
And with that credit for the class, it would be that's our prior learning application process, and so it's the cost to that is half the tuition rate to bring that in. So
Okay.
And a couple other considerations there is you have to be registered for a class before we can evaluate for prior learning assessment. And just because we award credit for the PLA doesn't necessarily mean that it'll transfer. So like you can apply if we give you credit, let's say for the intro class in the nuclear program, we will, it will count towards the nuclear program. But if you go on and transfer to another school, I can't guarantee that they'll recognize that credit for anything.
That's great information. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'll get us wrapped up here. I know you all are quite busy. We wanted to make this digestible for you all, but we look forward. I know you're in the audience. You guys are paying attention. We'll see you reaching out to contact an advisor, and we're hoping that you will be our next success story that we'll go through as we're advocating for, joining into these programs depending on what it looks like. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Again, we'll share contact information. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Greg and Ashley from Bismarck State College. It was wonderful. Great to learn more about your programs and the extensive work that you all do. And I'll close this out. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.